Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options to Play video update. Just we're gonna jump straight into it. I mean, this is gonna be another slammed week of earnings. Just big names each day. Yeah, maybe they're not the tech titans, but still, interesting companies, big expected moves, very busy calendar. Plus, you got the FOMC meeting this week, so just really expecting like a busy stretch of news coming up. Starting things off Monday morning, ON Semi pricing about 575. It's really like the only somewhat interesting name before the open. I doubt I'm going to be involved. I mean, the sentiment is just so bad on chip stocks right now. Even though like the numbers I felt have been decent, it's at the bottom of its range. Really needs to deliver, otherwise it could have a pretty serious breakdown. After the close on Monday, Arista is pricing about 12 and a half, sitting right at the 200-day near low of the year. I mean, they've turned in a few strong reports in a row, so it could be a snapback candidate if they deliver. But I mean, they just can't slip up. It's not a cheap name. Avis rental car. So about 47 points is what's priced in. I mean, it's been stronger recently, but option pricing is just still so elevated from that earnings move in November. I mean, I feel like it's hard to lay out $47 for this, especially considering Hertz didn't really do much at all after reporting this past week. All right, Expedia. So about 18 and a half points is what's priced in here. It's going to be a busy week for travel stocks. This is the first of the group because you have Booking and Airbnb the next couple days. So Expedia will probably set the tone. Last quarter was solid. I mean, there just seems to be a lot of positive news around travel trends right now. It might be a speculative bull idea, but option prices are expecting a pretty big move, typical relative to what it typically moves. So if I did anything, I'd really have to get risk down on it. Mosaic, so about 6.5 points is what's priced in. I mean, it's so similar to many other commodities right now. Got hit, right? Sitting right at the 50-day, right on working on like stabilizing. I mean, these commodity plays in general to me are more swing ideas, less interesting around earnings. So I'll be watching and waiting and see how they act over the next like week or so, or 2 weeks maybe. Before they open on Tuesday, I mean, Biogen earnings on revenues, I just don't think they're going to move the needle much for this one. So everybody's gonna be asking who they're buying and we know who's their target. But if they do talk M&A or if they do a deal, it could be a shot in the arm for bios. But I'm not gonna be playing earnings. Pfizer, so about 280 is what's priced in. First of the big vaccine reports next week. Moderna's the next day. It's gonna be interesting to see. After how much it's dropped. I mean, whether like it can move off of this level. Because other pharma stocks had been acting stronger, and Pfizer as well if it's high. Option price is not cheap, but might be a volatility strategy candidate if I can get the premiums down a little bit. After the close on Tuesday, so AMD, big name, 9 points is what's priced in. Historically, it's had runs into earnings, but I mean, sentiment is just so bad on semis that it cannot sustain a pop. I guess we'll see how earnings are because it feels like many people are increasingly negative on AMD. They've delivered big beats and raises for a while. So I still feel like the risk reward is skewed higher, but I mean, option pricing is not cheap and the sentiment is so bad in this sector that, I mean, it just kind of makes me on the fence with it for an earnings play because I'm just wondering if it might just be like more of like a focus after if the numbers are good and the stock actually starts to act better again. Airbnb, so about 16 points is what's priced in. So like I said, Expedia comes first. It'll probably move Airbnb a little bit, but Airbnb's delivered solid results a few quarters in a row. So I guess it wouldn't surprise me to see this get some interest out of its own report, assuming like the market acts okay. Valuation is still pretty high though, so it seems kind of like when it gets up into like the 180s, 190s, it runs out of gas. So to like really break out, it's gonna have to get through that. Lyft. So about 4 points is what's priced in. So this and Uber are both next week. Lyft is first. I mean, very weak chart, just grinding lower. It has that trending look to it, which usually means an avoid for me for an earnings report. I do think I do think that something's gonna have to change technically for me to want to get involved. So I mean, same thing with Uber. Like I haven't traded these much, and right now there's really nothing going on that makes me want to get involved. So I might just watch and see what happens. Starbucks. So about 5 points is what's priced in. McDonald's had a decent report, but I mean this and McDonald's are totally different charts right now. Starbucks is full on breaking down, steady slide lower. It hasn't had a bounce in a month actually. It's not usually a name I like to play on earnings, but I mean this does seem like an increasingly big quarter for Starbucks based off what the stock is doing. And if they don't deliver, there could be more room lower too. Might be more of a game time decision for me, but I mean, I think if I did do anything, I would have to get the option pricing down a little bit. So maybe with like spreads or flies or something. Before the open on Wednesday, CVS. So about 5 points is what's priced in. It was hanging above 100 pretty well just until today. It hasn't had a huge move on earnings in a while, but you know, minus today's breakdown, a little bit quieter, coiled pattern. I just don't know how much room the options leave, so I'm on the fence with it. Moderna pricing in about let me read this pricing in about 16 and a half. So like I said, Pfizer comes first, which probably will impact Moderna. Historically though, Moderna's had some big moves and it's been weaker lately. So I feel like it's like a big spot for report and it might be an interesting volatility strategy candidate. Marriott. So like I said, big week for travel. This is priced in 11 points. Hilton's the day before. Hotels, there haven't been earnings plays for me in a long time, but solid looking chart. And maybe it's like a swing trade focus after the numbers come out, depending on how the report is. After the close on Wednesday, booking, so about 190 points. Those options are really wide. Expedia, Airbnb numbers probably going to push it around, so I'm not sure what's going to be left here. But, I mean, $2,200 stock, right? You know, if it does have like a big move, I mean, that's pretty significant point wise, but it's just so thinly traded on the stock and the options that it's kind of like a tough one. It's also a big week for e-commerce names next week. eBay priced in about 5. Past few quarters have not been good. Stock is ticking back down again after Amazon's disappointment. Seems like expectations are turning lower. I mean, there's still a decent amount of room if it really gets hit. I mean, you can see there's room underneath 50, so it might be more of like a bear focus for me. Maybe we'll see. And then another e-commerce name that day, Etsy, which is pricing about 16 and a half. I mean, it just acts so weak at its 52-week low. It did have a big rebound last quarter, but I don't know if another mixed quarter is going to have that same type of reaction. Plus, option prices are pretty elevated, so it seems kind of like a tougher setup. Might be more of an avoid for me. FTNT, so about 40 points, but those are monthly options. Um, I guess I'm just more interested to see what they have to say because it's a bigger cybersecurity company and it might impact that group. Palo Alto might be like a sympathy play, maybe. It's also kind of been relatively range bound, so maybe like a coiled pattern setup, but you do have to like pay up for options because they're monthly contracts. Twilio, about 19 points is what's priced in. Just very, very, very weak software stock heading to earnings. Last quarter wasn't that bad, and it had this pop, but it immediately sold off. Steady downtrend. I mean, it's just going to need some good news and even like better action to break this trend. So like these types of patterns sometimes can lead to lower volatility around earnings. So I'm just really on the fence with this. I really am. And then Uber, so about 375. Like I said, Lyft is the day before. Definitely will impact Uber a little bit. Just have to see where Uber's trading to figure out if there's a trade there or not. All right, Thursday before the open, Crocs. So about 11 and a half points, but those are monthly options. It's a fallen retail leader. I mean, this thing was doing so great up until December, and now the wheels have fallen off. Just can't even bounce. It would be interesting if they can deliver and start to turn the corner higher. I mean, there's definitely room, as you can see, but that might be more of like a post-earnings swing idea for me. Datadog, about 19 points is what's priced in. They've consistently delivered for a little while now, so I guess I'm expecting more of the same. I guess the biggest issue is just whether or not the market's like risk on or risk off because it's kind of an expensive growth software stock, and traders don't seem that interested in bidding those things up right now. Shopify, about 62 points is what's priced in. I mean, what a fall this has had too, huh? recent stock split hasn't done anything to stop the slide. Amazon's earnings aren't helping. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to say, but I mean, it's probably going to need to be good because I mean, sentiment seems really bad on it right now. Um, and to like really turn the corner and get the trend reversed, I mean, it's going to have to be like a strong quarter, and I just don't know what the chances of that are. Penn. So about 4 points is what's priced in. Another broken chart. I mean, last couple of quarters have not gone well. It's been in this like steady downtrend, and to be honest, it looks like there's actually more room to the lower, to the downside if they do disappoint. So could still have some room to fall if the numbers aren't decent. Wayfair, another broken stock. About 15 points is what's priced in here. Um, I've been avoiding on earnings lately because it doesn't make sense to me a lot of times. I'd have like kind of wacky reactions to earnings, but I mean, very, very clear downtrend. So if it doesn't break that downtrend on earnings, then I'm looking for a continuation of the trend. Plus, like option prices always seem to be priced pretty high, so I don't think I'm going to be. I don't think it's going to be an earnings play for me. After the close on Thursday, Square. So about 15.5 points is what's priced in. Could be an interesting one. PayPal didn't have a perfect quarter, but rallied. Square had a big pop last quarter after a mixed report. So I mean, it seems like it's set up for a move in either direction, and could be a decent volatility strategy candidate. Cloudflare, about 14 points is what's expected. High price software stock needs to deliver. I mean, it does have a recent history of swung quarters, but I mean, this is one of those areas where, if they slip up one quarter, this thing's going to get punished. So, I mean, it needs to be good. DoorDash, so about 15 points is what's priced in here. Could be interesting. Pandemic beneficiary that's is really now near its worst level of the year, and I mean, this needs a decent reporter. This could see a big breakdown. Option pricing is pretty high, but if I can get risk down, might be something to look at on for like a strangle or a straddle. Lucid, so about 260 is what's priced in. Last quarter was disappointment. The stock has just been lifeless since then. It's going to need some good news, otherwise I just don't see how it's going to get any traction here. So Open Door, which is priced in $1.50, and then Zillow, which is priced in about 6 points. So a couple housing plays. Zillow no longer has the iBuy. It might be in a better spot moving forward. Plus, last quarter was decent for Zillow too, even though it's way underneath that now. I guess if I had to choose between the two, I'd go with Zillow because the last quarter and sentiment's pretty low on anything housing related. But I know I just don't know how much upside these things would even have until the sentiment improves. Sweet Green, so about $6 is what they're looking for. Those are monthly options. It's been a volatile new restaurant IPO. It's not the best looking chart, but it did have a pretty big move on earnings last quarter, and it might be something to look at. So I guess I'll see how the week goes first, and this might be something late in the week I mess around with. And then lastly, Friday before the open, Under Armour. So about $1.75 is what they're looking for. I mean, they've had some really solid reports over the past year, but the stock is acting lousy. It does have a decent history of moving on earnings, and has I guess a kind of an interesting setup too. It feels like the option pricing is a little high for this pattern, and I guess if I was going to do anything, I'd really need to get risk down a bunch. But I mean, to me, it does appear to have room in either direction, and it does have a consistent history of moving. So that's usually a good recipe for an earnings trade. So it might be something to look at on Friday morning. That's it. So lots of names, lots of big expected moves, and hoping for a lot of good action. Okay. So if you like this video and you're looking for more information about trading events or trading earnings with options, please follow up with the link in the description of the video for more information on options to play. Have a fantastic weekend. Stay well, and I will talk to you all on Monday.